Okay, good morning. We continue in Sefer Shoftim. We're in Perek Tes Zayin. We just finished Pasuk Vav. Pasuk Hey. Finished Pasuk Hey. So yesterday we discussed how Shimshon married Delilah, and we explained all the Kabbalistic reasons as to why he wanted to marry her and what good there was that he was wanted to bring out of this marriage. However, as good of a person she may have been, when the noblemen of the Plishtim came and offered her each 1,100 silver coins, which was quite an exorbitant amount of money, we see that was able to persuade her to ask Shimshon from where does his strength come from. Now, let's try to remember a couple things. Try to remember, it appears that there is a great betrayal on Delilah's part towards Shimshon. But there's a lot of details that are added. Some we discussed yesterday, but a few more that we still need to discuss. Number one, you have to remember, it was not Delilah who went to the Philistine nobleman. It was the Philistine nobleman who went to her. Number one. Number two, they did not send messengers to her. They didn't send a captain or a minister. The rulers themselves called upon her. Now, you have to remember the verse says as well, Vaya'alu eleho sarnei plishtim. The sarnei plishtim went up to her, indicating that she lived in the mountains. So now imagine the dictators of 5 states struggling up a mountain to see a common woman. Okay? You can certainly if they were able to give the job to someone else to do it, they would have gladly given it to someone else to do. Obviously, they felt it was important to do it themselves because they would give her a lot of honor, a lot of respect. 5 important people come, so it's a serious thing. A. B. If you notice, they did not ask how we'll be able to kill Shimshon. Because they could have simply said, here Delilah, here's a little bit of arsenic, put it in his spinach, and just make sure he doesn't wake up the next day. And that would have been a simple solution. But the opposite, they wanted to know what was the secret of his strength. So as they said, we can master him, we can bind him and subdue him. But they did not say to kill him. And indeed, that they kept that promise. So with that in mind, perhaps you could say the following, that Delilah was confronted with a difficult decision. Shimshon was obviously being hunted like an animal. He was in danger. He was in danger of losing his life. She's in danger of losing her husband, and maybe her own life as well. Shimshon was getting older. As we said, he was over 60 already. So how much longer is he going to be able to elude the Plishtim and fight back the Plishtim? So maybe it'd be better if he lost his strength, stopped his outbursts of anger with the Plishtim, and with the governor's promise, then his life was assured. So let him live as a regular guy. That's how the Yetzer Hara, and especially, but obviously how could it be so foolish? Did she forget that Hashem was protecting him? Hashem was giving him the strength. Didn't she know that it wasn't just good old-fashioned muscles that Shimshon had that did all these things? So to this we come back to what we said yesterday. They promised her money, and at the end of the day, money. Hashem gave people an intellect, and the intellect goes where the human being wants it to go. So you see now how it goes from one extreme to the other. The woman who risked her life to marry Shimshon, now after being offered honor and a bribe and a little bit enough to justify what she's doing, she agrees to betray him, all the while thinking she's protecting him. That's how the Yetzer Hara works. Yetzer Hara makes it saying you're doing a good thing. So listen, becoming an instant multimillionaire doesn't hurt in terms of creating a rationalization that suits the ability to take in all that money. So you already see how she falls. interesting. We're drawing. Rabbi Tzadok draws parallels. I don't know if he says this, but he's drawing the parallel that that Shimshon, as the potential Mashiach, is rectifying the original sin of Adam and Chava. So that's why Shimshon had to marry a woman, had to have a Chava. And you can imagine if he was prepared to live with her and marry her, then he figures now is the time to make the tikkun on the chait of Adam Rishon. So who was the one who started the downfall of the original sin? It was the woman. It was the woman who's seduced by the snake and then goes over to Adam and makes him sin. Who is the one that's beginning the downfall here? It's Delilah. She's willing to take the bribe of the governors. So that's how the slippery slope. You'll see there's a lot of parallels over here. You can't ignore the parallels over here. Adam HaRishon had a tremendous koach, had a tremendous power. Midrash says he could see from one end of the world to the other. He was extremely high, tall. If it was physically, but certainly it was existentially. He had great power in many ways. And by Chava telling him to eat from the forbidden fruit, listening to the snake, as it were, he was crippled. Yamash was crippled. His height was shortened. His breadth was minimized. So similar ideas are coming over here, and it's all So we can thank Delilah for not being a very good wife, Ezer Connector for Shimshon. Okay, so now let's begin to see the issues here.
But her intentions were good. Is that the idea here?
I'm sure Chava's intentions were good also.
I don't see how you can say her intentions are good. They use the word, so
no,
he won't be dead. But
no, la'anoso means to subdue, not necessarily to make him suffer. The way many of Forshim say it means to subdue. So so he won't be a strong man anymore. That's all. But they won't kill him. So
what was this was when the nobleman came out?
I don't know. It was.
When he came out, means that was his house.
Right. So the husbands do leave the house from time to time. Maybe he went out to the woods to hunt an animal or something. I don't know. Okay, that's an interesting point. Again, it's very cryptic over here. What's going on over here? Okay, if you want, you have to take the whole picture. Just to say she was a rotten woman, she didn't have to marry him.
No,
right?
So
obviously,
she saw the money and that was it. Everything had just been.
Okay, they didn't have to tell you that the Sarnei Plishtim went up to her. They didn't have to go into such detail of we're only going to imprison him. They didn't have to say that. They could. They definitely in the past they wanted to kill him. So obviously they were couching it in a way that it wouldn't sound so bad. It's obviously it's not so bad. What?
I don't know. It's hard to put her in a good light.
Okay, fine. Okay, you want to put her in a worse light? Put her in a worse light. Okay. Vav. Vatomer Delilah el Shimshon. So Delilah now speaks to Shimshon and she says, Hagidon oli, please tell me, Bameh kochacha gadol, in what way is your strength so big? What's the source of your strength? Ubameh teyaser la nosecha, and how could people imprison you to subdue you? Okay, no commentary because it's just repeating what they asked. Pasuk Zayin. Now, we're going to learn now these psukim on a simple level, and at the same time we'll learn it the way Rabbi Tzadok explains it on a much deeper level. Yomer eleha Shimshon. Shimshon says, Im yasruni b'shiva yesorim lachim asher lo choravu. If you will imprison me, if you will bind me with 7 yesorim lachim, yes, there's like a light rope. Okay, and they are lachim, they're wet. Wet, light ropes, asher lo charavu, which have not dried out, just for emphasis. V'chalisi, then I will become weak. The Targum explains weak, not sick, but weak. V'yisi ke'achad ha'adam. I will be like ke'achad ha'adam, like one of people. It's a very unusual word. Ke'achad ha'adam. Grammatically, there's a lot of problems with that word. The Mitzvah just says simple. I'll be like anybody else.
Yeah.
But we'll see that that's not the precise translation of the word ke'achad ha'adam. So we'll have to wait a minute to see what's going on over here. So now, what did she ask for and what did he respond? Hello? What did she ask for and what did he respond?
She has to find out what the source of his power is.
That's all she asked
And
for?
How he can be imprisoned.
How can he imprisoned? What did he answer?
He said, I can become weakened by tying 7 wet ropes around me. Like the rest of the people.
Okay, so what did he answer? Which question did he answer?
None of it the ones. Well, it's
No.
hard to say.
He answered the second question. He answered only the second question, how can he be bound up? He didn't answer where's the source of his strength. Right? So the Malbim explains, I mean, he notices this, and he says, as if to say, like, by not mentioning it, it's almost as if I don't even know what the source of my strength is, and it's just was something natural. You know, and you want to know how to tie it up? I guess I tried, and I see that if I'm tied up with these 7 ropes, it will tie me down. It'll work. But I don't know that. I don't know. So he's letting on as if he doesn't know the source of his strength. He says he's naturally born with this strength, and I know that this will be that which will tie me down. That's how he explains it. That's how the Malbim explains it. Reb Tzadok says that Shimshon realizes that the Yetzer Hara now is at work. It's working on many levels now. The Yetzer Hara is working on her, and obviously if he's married to him, it's working on him too. And if she's already asking for this kind of stuff, he already knows that there's something afoot. Doesn't know exactly what's afoot. Doesn't necessarily know that there's Philistines making a deal and there's millions of dollars on the table. I don't believe he understands. Maybe he did, but it's not likely. So, but he knows there's something not going on over here, and if it's the Yetzer Hara with her, then it's the Yetzer Hara with him too. And he feels he can still rectify her and maybe give her some Musar lessons in order how to deal with this. So we know there's a lot of Chazal on how the Yetzer Hara works. And as the Chazal says that the Yetzer Hara first starts as very thin ropes trying to pull you, but that ends as very strong ropes trying to pull you. As we see through the give and take, there's going to be 4 give and takes over here. This is round 1. So he's saying it's a rope. It's not so strong yet. The Yetzer Hara first comes, not such a strong rope. And we'll see as he continues, it will end like strong enough ropes to pull wagons. And he says 7 ropes. Why 7 ropes? Because the Yetzer Hara has 7 names. 7 names. Ra, Satan, etc. There's 7 names, because why? Because there's 7 negative manifestation of the Spheros. Chesed through Malchus can be manifested in evil ways, and that's how the Yetzer Hara uses the 7 characteristics in the wrong way to get a person to sin. So, and obviously, how can you subdue me? What he means to say is, how could the Yetzer Hara subdue me? Because that's really what you're trying to do. There's the Yetzer Hara. He could smell out the Yetzer Hara is involved over here. And how does the Yetzer Hara subdue me? So he's got these moist ropes, and we know that lust is linked to moisture, to liquid. Water represents lust. We had a long discussion about this in a Parsha class a number of weeks ago. And lo charavu, and it's the lust is not desolate from in this world, and there's a lot of lust. And the Yetzer Hara can try to pull me with lust, and there's 7 different ways it can rationalize it, and it comes first in a very subtle way. So it's her lust for money, which he's not realizing it, but that's how she is meant to apply it in her life. And he realizes that he is going to be tested with lust. So his real answer is, you can weaken me by getting me to get into the sins of the ropes of lust. That's how you'll be able to the Yetzer Hara can pull me down. To himself, he adds, and this is where he adds this, Vayisi ke'achad ha'adam. Ke'achad really means like the one person, meaning like a unique person. So we have in the Torah we have times where Avimelech, way back with the story of Avram and Yitzchak, he said when they lied that their wives were their sisters, and then Hashem comes to Avimelech and says, I'm going to kill you. You took his wife, and he didn't know, etc. Then he comes to Avram and he says, you almost made it that one of Ke'achad ha'am would sin. What does kachad mean? One of the special people, meaning the king. Somebody special would sin. So the word kachad ha'am or kachad ha'adam is referring to a special person. And Shimshon is saying, even if after I will sin, I will still have a lot of holiness, I can still do tshuva, and I'm still a very special person. So he was really hinting to her, or even saying it clearer to her, this is what dealing with the Yetzer Hara is all about, which is precisely what's going on over here. Okay, so that's on a second level. So now let's take it on a third level. Now, what is Shimshon doing over here? Now, let's put yourself in Shimshon's shoes over here. You've got a wife who's asking something that really is forbidden territory to get into. As we know, he's a man who's supposed to keep secrets, right? And this whole thing, he has to be a Nazir. And so what are other possible answers he could have told his wife? He could have said, listen, I'm sorry, dear, it's a secret. Or he could have lied and said, there's no secret, I was born with this strength, there's no way to subdue me. It's another possible answer. But what does he do? He makes a fatal mistake. He chose to ignore those alternatives and starts walking a tightrope with Delilah. His mom is walking a tightrope, because as we see, as the conversations continue, she sucks him in slowly. She gets him to reveal the real truth. But right now he's not. So why is this going on over here? So although Shimshon never really was commanded from the angel when he spoke to his mother, or Hashem never said to him to conceal the source of his strength, but he decided it would be important to keep the secret in order to safeguard his being a Nazir. He has to be a Nazir. There's certain rules he had. He can't drink wine. He can't cut his hair and things like that. So he wouldn't tell the truth that the strength was in his hair, because as a Nazir be forbidden to be cut, because lest it would get cut by someone cutting the hair against his will. So he's not going to tell. He can't tell that secret. But he didn't want to say it's a secret, because what would that mean? It would mean he's saying, I don't trust you. And that would not do good for the Shalom Bayis. There's a lot of Shalom Bayis lessons that can be learned over here. Right? So it's a secret. What do you mean? A secret's from your wife? Not such a good thing either. So what are you going to say? An outright lie? So Shimshon rejects that too. Instead tries to fool her. So first of all, he ignores the question of the source of his strength. They just ignores. And number two, he deals with the issue of being subdued. And he chose his words very carefully. Very carefully. And this is how others learn this. So when he said, I am like ke'achad ha'adam, so Delilah thinks it means, as certainly the Mitzudas explain, I'll be like any man. But like we noticed, the words ke'achad ha'adam is an unusual word. So it really means, these words mean like one of the people, but can also mean, as we translate, like a unique one of the people. So what he really was saying is, even if you're going to buy me with 7 robes, it's not going to do anything to my strength. In other words, he was careful not to say an outright lie. So where was the precedent for this? We have this many times in the Torah. When Yaakov had to steal the blessings from Esav, and Yitzchak asks Yaakov, who are you? Are you my son Esav? What did he say? He didn't say, I am your son Esav. He says, I am Anochi Esav Becharecha. Esav is your firstborn. He said words that is not a lie. It's not a lie, but but it could be misinterpreted to be meant to something else in order to minimize the amount of lying that he's doing. Yaakov could have said, I am Esav, your firstborn. He didn't say that. He said, Anochi, I am, and Esav Becharecha, Esav is your firstborn. So I am who I am, and Esav is your firstborn. Yitzchak, expecting to hear I am Esav, assumed that he meant to say I am Esav. So the same thing, Delilah is expecting him to say, what's the source, how can we overcome you? He says, well, if you tie me up with these 7 robes, I will be like Ke'achad Adam. So obviously, he probably understood Hebrew better than she did. Remember, it probably was not her first tongue. Right? She spoke whatever language the Philistines spoke. So therefore, when he would, these subtle nuances, when you're speaking to someone who's not familiar with the language, so he says, Ke'achad Am. So she goes, oh, like one of the people. He meant like a unique one of the people. So therefore, he minimized the amount of lying. And why do we do that? Because it's a very bad trap to go into. Once you start lying overtly, you get into other lies. So in other words, so we've got three ways of looking at this. You have the simple answer. He says 7 ropes. You have Rav Tzadok going more existentially, telling us how to deal with the Yetzer Hara. We also have to see how Shimon was trying to deal with his shalom bias issues and to not outright lie. Okay, so according to that, he never really said what the source of his strength was. He misled her into thinking that. Okay, Pasuk Zayin. Pasuk Ches. Vayalu lo. Now again, there's a little bit missing in between. I mean, she must have sent word to the Philistine governors that she found out the secret. And she must have certainly believed what Shimshon was saying over here. So Pasuk Ches. Vayalu lo sarnei plishtim. Shiva Yisarim Lachim Asher Lo Charavu. So the Plishti governors brought up for her 7 of these not such strong ropes, which had not dried up. The moist had not been dried. And she tied him in them. There's a big argument amongst the commentaries. Did she tie them, willfully to him, or when he was asleep? Some of Forshim learned he was asleep every time she did this. Some said that these were while he was awake, and later on it was when he was asleep. But she ties him up. Pasuk Tes. And she's telling these guys, and just wait in the side room, because you'll be able to catch him very quickly. Pasuk Tes. V'ha'orev yoshev lo b'cheder. And the ambush is sitting in the adjacent room. Because if indeed this does subdue him, you'll be able to take him. Malbim learns that who was the ambush? It was indeed the governors themselves, maybe with some of their henchmen. But you see, the governors now came back, or unless they never went down, it's not clear. It could be they stuck around, and then she gave word to them. They brought, but from the words by Yalula means brought up, means they had to go up again. So this is the second time the Philistine governors come up. She must have been very certain that he was telling the truth. So she's got the ambush hiding in the room next door. Vatomer Elav, she says to him, Plishtim Alecha Shimshon. Shimshon, the Plishtim are upon you. They're ready to attack. Do something. Interesting. I don't know why. Nobody comments on this. Why did they have to say the word Shimshon? Just say Plishtim Alecha. The Plishtim are upon you. What are you adding the word Shimshon for? Don't know. First of all, from this, you'd seem to think he was asleep, right? If she was awake, if she tied him up when he was awake, and she ties him up, so like she's busy tying him up. Unless you're going to have to say she tied him up, went into the kitchen, and then pretends like she's looking through the window and says, "Oh, the Plishtim are coming." Right? It would seem it would be more simple to say. I mean, each shot has problems. To say she tied him up when he was asleep, and then she suddenly wakes him up and says, "The Plishtim are upon you, Shimshon." And that way. So then you have to. And you're also going to have to assume he must have been a very deep sleeper. Must have been a very deep sleeper to be able to bind a man like that without waking up. Unless you're going to say that she resorted to activities similar to what Yoel did with Sisera to get him to sleep really well. Again, a lot is not written. We have to speculate over here. But why would you have to say the word Shimshon? I mean, obviously, who else is she talking to over there? Again, so you could say maybe there is an Indian. I'm just speculating. There's an Indian if a person's asleep. How do you arouse them when you say their name? That wakes up their neshama. When you say a person's name, there's many cases where people were in comas and they've said their Hebrew name and somehow gets them out of the coma. In other words, there is a connection one has to one's Hebrew name, and therefore to say his name that would arouse them out of the sleep. Otherwise, I have no idea why she has to say Shimshon unless she was awake and he's in the kitchen and to make sure that she's talking to him and not to anybody else. I mean, who else could be talking to? So it's an interesting thing. Because every time it is this way, it's the police are finding him. Anyway, so he's startled. The police are coming. So look what happens. He is able to loosen, remove, or break into two the ropes Kesher yinasek psil hanaores baharicho esh. Just like a psil hanaores, like a flimsy cotton string can be broken, literally when it smells fire. Meaning to say, when any amount of fire comes to a little bit of a cotton string, boom, it takes no effort to destroy it. V'lo noda kocho, and you couldn't even tell his strength. Couldn't even tell his strength. So, meaning to say, it was effortless. It's like garnished. It took nothing. It was totally easy to get rid of it. So, Reb Tzadok, going along his lines of explaining everything more on an idea dealing with the Yetzer Hara. So, the idea of why does the Navi use the word fire? Because he says that Shimshon still had the fire of Torah. And the fire of Torah allows a person to easily shake off a test. However, lo noda kolcho, he also can be understood as he didn't know his strength, meaning to say his strength is beginning to descend. He's beginning to lose the willpower. He's using the right tactics, but he's slowly slipping down. As we'll see shortly, how one deals with one's Yetzer Hara, all these steps seem to fit in. All right, pasuk Yud. Vatomer Delila el Shimshon. So now Delila says to Shimshon, Hinei salta bi. Behold, you are mocking me. Vatidabere like savim. You're telling me lies. Ata now, hagidon ali. Please tell me. B'meh teoser. With what can I bind you? Okay, so now she's already. The question is a little bit different, isn't it? What's the question now? Only how do I bind you? She forgot about, she didn't ask anymore about where's the source of your strength. Right? In other words, she believed him to say, I don't know the source of my strength. He's saying, I don't know the source of my strength. So she believed him. But after he said what to be tied with, so why did you lie to me by saying these false things? So now at least tell me the truth in this area that you were talking about. How did it bind you? Okay. He says to her, says, oh, well, you didn't understand what I meant. I didn't lie to you. There was one little more point I forgot to add, or I thought you would have known to be obvious. He says, Imasor yasruni bavosim chadoshim. If you will tie me up, but not only are they moist ropes, but they have to be brand new ropes. I thought you'd get me new ropes. You weren't going to get me used ropes. Asher lo nasa b'malach, no work was ever done with them. V'chalisi, then I will become weak. V'yishi kechad adam, then I will be like one of the people again. So, the Malbim, I've explained it like the Malbim, that he says that you forgot the condition. There was another condition to the rope, that it's a rope that was, now more than this. In a second, he's calling these the ropes are called a little bit different term now. Beginning, he called them what in pasuk Zayin? He called them Yisarim. Now he's calling them Avosim. Avosim means very much stronger ropes, triple corded ropes, triple twined ropes. Number one, and number two, no work came to them. So it wasn't clear what I wanted. So Reb Tzadok says something very fascinating here. He says, okay, this is the next understanding of the Yetzer Hara. And the next understanding of the Yetzer Hara is, there's a very famous question that is asked. We say a lot of amazing things about the patriarchs. Avram Avinu was amazing. He was willing to sacrifice his son on an altar for Hashem. And we make a big deal about it. So the question is, what's the big deal about it? You see, throughout the millennia of Jewish history, parents were willing to sacrifice their children to sanctify God's name. Many times, many amazing Holocaust stories where people had the opportunity to save their children at the expense of having other children being killed, and they refused to do that. And there was one particular story that happened on Rosh Hashanah, where a person had the money to bribe the Nazis that his son, who was supposed to go to the gas chambers, he could have replaced him with another. And he asked the shayla to a rabbi, and the rabbi said, I can't answer that question. I can't answer such a question. So if I says, I understand, but you don't answer the question, it means I'm not meant to bribe my child, for my child. And he happily and willingly sacrificed his son. He says, today is like, on Rosh Hashanah, we read about the binding of Isaac, and I bound my child. So you see many stories where people were willing to die for God. So what's the big deal about Avram? Or many other things that Avram did that people replicate. So the answer that all this firm bring down is that, you know why it's not so hard for us to do? Because we had a patriarch who blazed the trail, who went through the test the first time. Once somebody goes through a test in life, and it's the first time anyone has it, you now bring an energy into the world that other people are able to do this. You know, different lahavdil in a secular way, as we once mentioned, that breaking the 4-minute mile was a physical impossibility. It was not possible. The fastest runners could not do it. And then when John Bannister, I think it's Roger, sorry, Baruch Hashem, forgetting these things. Bannister broke the 4-minute mile, then within a very short period of time, lots of people were breaking the 4-minute mile. So how do you understand that? It says once a barrier is broken, it's broken. And then it's a psychological barrier more than a real physical barrier. So how could a person give his life away for God? It's mostly a psychological barrier. Once that can be broken, it's broken. So once a patriarch, so the idea being once a tzaddik goes through a test and withstands a test, it becomes a source later for Jews to be able to withstand that test. Which now helps us explain, you see many people in Tanakh, fail. You learn the story of the Jews in the desert. They didn't have belief in God. They failed in this area, and they with the spies and the golden calf. You said, none of us would make a golden calf. I would never make a golden calf. Right? So the answer is, because they were tested for the first time in that area. So there's some failures, still some successes. Now we already are living many years after the failures and the subsequent successes, so it's easy for us to deal with them. So what does this have to do with Shimshon? Shimshon says, the way the Yetzer can get me is with a new rope. In other words, give me a test that nobody was tested in before. If I'm given a new test that nobody was tested in before, then it's a better chance for me to fall than into something that somebody else was already tested in and passed. Then I will have the strength from my ancestors to be able to pass this. So give me a new test that I've not yet, and others have not passed yet either. And then, but even if I fail, he's still saying, I'll be still a unique person, and I'll still be able to do tshuva. So, and again, that's it. He's realizing the Yetzer is going to get a little trickier. And Reb Tzadok applies the following Talmudic statement that was applied to David HaMelech. He's applying it here to Reb Tzadok as well. The Gemara says that the Yetzer Hara comes on 3 levels. First, it comes as a holech. First, it comes as a wayfarer knocking on the door. Can I come into your house for a minute? And then you let him in. And then he becomes an oreach. Then he becomes a house guest. And you ever have certain people that ask you for a favor? Can I spend shot? I have no place to go. Can I go to you for a couple of days? So at the point when he asks you, he's a holech. He's a wayfarer. You say, okay, a couple of days. Okay, we have a room in the basement. Put you in. Then he goes in. He becomes a guest. And then you notice after 3, 4, 5 days, the guy isn't mentioning anything about leaving. Right? So the third step is that the guest then becomes an ish, becomes a man, becomes the owner of the house. And you have the guy saying, you didn't give me a very good dinner tonight. And these accommodations are terrible. And it's complaining. And before you could say, you've been here for 3 weeks already, when are you leaving? The guy's focused on all the things you're not doing right, and he's putting you on the defensive. There's certain people who are amazing at doing this, where you're not interested, and the guy's telling you it's already you're at fault. You understand? You want to get the guy out, and the guy's complaining about this, complaining about that, and you're so busy defending yourself, you forget that you have to throw. It's not the guy's house; it's my house. I had that once many years ago. It was very hard to throw someone out of the house. It was really a bad situation. Then you have to finally put your foot down because you feel, and they know what to pray. They pray on these nice people who like to do good and feel terrible kicking the guy out. And it has to be both the husband and wife. The husband and wife for a week saying, you got to talk to him. You got to. I can't talk to him. I feel terrible telling him this. The guy's got them so manipulated, right? And the guy's there ready for 6 months, and then and before you know it, he's even going to sell the house. Whatever. But that's how it happens. It starts as a holech, starts as a wayfarer, then as a guest, then he's the man. that's how the Yetzer Hara works. And we're getting one step after another step is happening, as we'll see as we continue in the next pasuk. You'll begin to see how this is all working out over here. But clearly, give him a test he can't handle that I haven't handled before, it becomes more difficult. So let's see. She believes now he's telling the truth. Yud Beis, Atikach Delila Avosim Chadoshim, so she gets new ropes. Now, it says she took it. It doesn't say the Sarnei Plishtim gave it to her. The governor says, okay, one time it didn't work. Well, don't call us again, because, we don't think it's going to happen. Vatasreu behem, she ties him up. Vatarmelov, she says to him, Plishtim alecha Shimshon. Shimshon, the Plishtim are attacking. And now it says, V'ha'orev Yoshev b'chader. The ambush was lying in the room next door, but these were not the governors anymore. The governor said, okay, if you need it, we can't keep coming up all the time. Call some of our captains. They'll be there. So they're already losing a little faith in her ability to get it out of him. But Vayinatke me'al zro'osav kachut. Then he rips it off his arms, kachut, like a rope. So the Malbim says, it doesn't look like he had to do anything. The first time it says, it was lo noda hadavar. It's like you wouldn't even know, you didn't even know he had strength, because it was like nothing. It doesn't say that now. It says he ripped it off like a string. It looked like he had to use a little effort, which means to say he's beginning to weaken. And Reb Tzedek is saying at this point now, the wayfarer is now becoming a guest. It's already something to contend with. The ropes, the ropes of sin. In the beginning was nothing, just burned away. But now it looks he had to make some effort. So now we're dealing with a guest, and a guest needs to be dislodged. It's a little bit harder. So it's interesting, the Gemara in Brachos says, there are 3 antidotes to fighting the Yetzer Hara. Gemara in Brachos. If the Yetzer Hara comes to contend with you, first you should just say, get out of here, I'm not interested in you, and just blow it away. But what if that doesn't work? What if you feel you can't overcome the Yetzer Hara? So the first solution is, learn Torah. Torah will push away the Yetzer Hara. Why? Because Torah is clarity, Torah is reality. The Yetzer Hara, all the Yetzer Hara's tool is one thing, to confuse you with reality. That's all it is. It gets you to say what is black is white and what's white is black. It worked with Delilah. The money and this all of a sudden convinces her she's doing the right thing, handing over her husband. So that's how. So how do you stop the Yetzer Hara? You learn the emes. You have to learn what the truth is. And if you want to see the truth, a little bit of truth takes a lot of falseness out. So if you get strong in Torah, the Yetzer Hara is out of there. And of course, Torah is something that activates your spiritual senses and takes away from the physical senses. And the Yetzer Hara works through the physical. So that's number one. So how do you see that? With Shimshon. Shimshon, the first time it says, it was burnt off like fire. And fire is like Torah. So he's using his Torah knowledge to be able to push away this Yetzer Hara. So it worked. But what if it begins to not work? Then the second step, what's the second thing the Gemara says? Is say the Kriya Shema. Say the Kriya Shema. And to realize the unity of Hashem, and there's a relationship with Hashem. You don't want to let Hashem down. Now it's interesting, in the Shema, you have these little ropes over here, right? The chutim. You have the chutim of the tzitzis. So this time when it says that he has to remove it, it says he's able to remove it. It says, may also kachut. Like a chut, and we know in terminology this is called chut tzitzis. So in other words, by accepting the yoke of heaven, this is what tzitzis is all about. So this will help the mitzvah tzitzis. But you see, it requires more effort now. He's requiring more effort, and we don't know exactly what the Yetzer Hara with Shimshon was particularly, but it must have been harder, and his wife is pushing him. So he's trying all the right tools, but she's penetrating. She's weakening him. It was harder to get that rope off. He got it off, but that rope of sin was harder. So Pasuk Yigimel, Vatomer Delilah says al Shimshon, Adheina Heisalta bi. Until now you keep. Until how long are you going to mock me? Vatidabaya like Savim. That you're going to tell lies to me. Hagidali, please tell me. Bameh te'aser, well, how are we going to bind you? Again, she just asked you that. Vayomer Elah, he says, and now he makes a much bigger slip. He's getting a lot closer. He says, Im targi sheva machlafos roshi ima masaches. If you tie down my 7 beautiful braids of hair, ima masaches, with a frame of weaving, like a weaver's frame. I don't know exactly how you do that. I'm not sure how a weaver's frame works. But someone get my hair into this weaver's frame, and you get it tied down from that, and that will be the way to deal with me. So obviously he's heading into dangerous territory over here now, because he's already talking about his hair. Okay. And the first 2 times he said, well, I meant this. Now he's saying, yeah, the truth is I agree, and it's clear that he fooled her. But he's saying, okay, this is what's going to be it. So Reb Tzadok says he's getting much closer to his kedusha of being a Nazir, and his level was falling against the Yetzer Hara. And notice what he did not say over here if he's tied with this. What did he say the first time? He says, Vayisi ka'achad ha'adam, I'll be like one of the people. I'll be a unique person. He's not saying that anymore, because the Yetzer Hara now is becoming the Adam, the Balabais. The Yetzer Hara now is becoming the owner of the house. And he's having much more trouble struggling to deal with this.